Whoop whoop, that's the sound of the Twitter police. Because trust me, in Britain, if you post something on social media and the UK police don't like it, they're fucking coming for you.
The number of people stabbed to death in the UK is at its highest level since the end of the Second World War. 285 people were killed with knives in the year to date March 2018, 212 the year before, a massive increase. And all of this is going on as the police are subject to fiercer and fiercer funding cuts. There are 21,000 fewer police officers on our streets, and funding has decreased overall by 19%.
The Prime Minister Theresa May, however, has been at pains to deny any link between police cuts and the increasing crime rate. And if that makes you sceptical, you're not the only one. Jeremy Corbyn has accused the government of causing the crisis by gutting the country's police forces.
Ensuring there are sufficient resources for the police to deal with it.
The police are not pleased today, and I will explain to you as the video goes on. But somehow the police seem it necessary, instead of pounding the beat of the streets, to pound the beat of social media. They seem to believe knocking on people's doors for not actually committed a crime is more important than burglary, more important than knife crime, more important than gun crime, more important than violent crime. Violent crime has gone right through the roof in the UK, especially in London. But they wish to knock on people's doors just purely because they tweeted something.
I've been asked to come and speak to you to make you aware, okay, that your comments are visible online. I've just been asked to come and remind you about the use of forums and social media, etc. We're just here to keep the peace, aren't we? I'm not here for any other reason than to have a chat with you, that's all.
So let's go with this. Record knife crime, record gun crime, record violence, record burglaries, record rapes. And these two police officers are knocking on an innocent man's door to tell him that people are looking at him on social media. He hasn't actually broken any laws, but somehow it's okay for these two police officers to come knocking on his door to let him know that maybe he shouldn't be saying those sort of things on social media.
Just want to get this on video because you're recording as well, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, you're saying that my ability to express my freedom of speech on a website is being rescinded because you have a problem with it personally?
No, I've not said that you can't use forums or post.
So who sent you here then?
As you said, it's freedom of speech.
Right.
It's more about the content of what you've put.
So what have you got a problem with?
Some comment that you've said you're going to drag somebody out of an office, an MP, you're going to drag it out of an office into the street and question
Based
it.
on a hypothetical situation?
Yeah, but all I'm asking, I'm not saying you can't use it, or you shouldn't be using it, I'm just asking you to be mindful about what you're putting on there.
Alright,
in case it's deemed as inciting.
Yeah, let's put the situation into context, right? So, based on something that may or may not happen, an action could be taken, right? So how can you have a problem with that?
I'm not saying we've got a problem with it.
Right.
I've been asked to come and speak to you to make you aware, okay, that your comments are visible online and we can see
I know that. I've been doing it for, what, 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And you've got every right to do that. I've not got
So
an issue
why
with
are
it.
you here then?
Because I've just explained that to you.
You haven't.
It's the fact of what you said, and then you said, I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
Who wants to join me?
Right.
So it can be seen as sort of inciting something to happen.
Inciting what? Inciting something based on an outcome that hasn't yet even been visualised. No one knows whether it's going to happen or not.
But it's
If
still
the government betrays the people, do you really think that I'm going to be the only one?
Stephen, I'm not
how
going to
do you
get
know?
into the debate or arguments.
Well, this is what I'm getting into. This is what I'm getting into, because we need to get into it. Because if you think about it, if Brexit is denied, right, there's not just going to be isolated pockets of violence. The whole country is going to be inflamed. You're talking 17.4 million people.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm going to be the only one?
You've got your own comments and thoughts about it, haven't you? That's fair enough.
I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And we've got the right to express it.
Yeah, of course you have. I agree.
And you don't seem to get that.
No, I do.
Who sent you?
It's come from my inspector.
Whatever way you look at this scenario, it's bad, 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 bad. What these two police officers are doing is thought crime. You can't really think that way. You can't really say that thing. You can't really write that thing. You can't really put that on a social media site. You need to be careful what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 1984. Do I blame these two police officers for doing it? In a way, yes. Okay, they need to follow their orders. But you also need to question orders. Isn't that what the Nazis did? But I was only just following orders and that's why I killed that person or done this or done that. Well, isn't that the way it starts? I know it sounds extreme, but it still gives you a picture of what I'm talking about. The problem with the police force today is it's very political. Where before, when I was a kid, they were the police force. It was someone that you sort of looked up to and you was careful around. You had the respect for the police force. But how can you have a respect for a police force that goes knocking on an innocent person's door to tell them they should not be thinking that way?
It's quite an interesting discussion when we've got a limited freedom of speech in this country. It's been eroded all the time because people like you are taking orders from people who want it to be eroded. I mean, you've got all these stupid laws.
Nobody's
saying people can't speak their minds anymore. You know what happens when people can't talk to each other? Bad feelings bottle up inside you, and there's only a certain, there's two things are going to happen. Either someone's going to explode and do something, and you guys are going to get involved, or they're just going to get depressed.
Bravo, sir, bravo. Absolutely fantastically said. So the question you've got to ask yourself is, what's happened to the police force? Well, what's happened to the police force is they're not actually a force anymore. They're a service. They consider that Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds and transsexuals and homosexuals and Islam and all these other groups seem to be more important than just doing their job and making sure that no matter what gender someone is, what religion someone is, what sex someone is, everyone should be able to have the right to walk down the street without getting mugged or stabbed or shot. Be able to leave your house and not worried about your house being burgled. You know, the sort of stuff, the reason why the police force was generated so many years ago. The police have come away from true policing and have become political.
I've seen this tweet back in September of last year by the South Yorkshire Police encouraging citizens to report not only hate crimes but non-crime hate incidents, which include things like insulting comments online. This post garnered more than 10,000 replies, and if you scroll through them, you'd be hard-pressed to find any in support of it. Now, this kind of policing is not new. Here's a similar tweet from Scotland Police in 2018. And of course, we all know what a wonderful sense of humour the Scottish Police have in light of the Count Dankula case. But lest you think this is a recent phenomenon, here's a tweet from the Wiltshire Police from 18 months ago. Personally, I think the bigger atrocity is that the Wiltshire Police can't distinguish between you're and you are. But hey, the Scots have been going down this path since at least December 2014, warning citizens that they can track down your mean tweets wherever you are. But in recent days, I think we may have reached peak Orwell, as the Humberside Police are now checking up on your thinking, merely for liking a tweet. 53-year-old Harry Miller, himself a former police officer, said he was questioned for 34 minutes over the phone by a police constable from Humberside Police. Here's how he described the call on Twitter. Got a call from director of his company saying cops wanted to speak to me. He had sense not to give out my number but said he'd pass on details. I rang, spoke to PC from Humberside, introduces himself as representing the LGBTQ community on a report of hate speech by me. They'd found me via my company, had been all over the website and decided if I employed trans people at all, it was not a safe place for them and work should know. Cop said he was in possession of 30 tweets by me. I asked if any contained criminal material. He said no. I asked if any came close to being criminal, and he read me a limerick. Honestly, a limerick. A cop read me a limerick over the phone. I said I didn't write that. He said, but you liked it and promoted it. I asked why he was wasting his time on a non-crime. He said, it's not a crime, but it will be recorded as a hate incident.
So with all the resources they're throwing into this social media attack, stopping people from speaking their mind even though it's not a criminal offence. What about the rest of the money? Surely we've lost 20,000 police force, right? And that's why the crime is the way it is. What is it really? Well, let Daniel Bostock explain to you.
What we're putting forward is a proposal to increase police numbers.
Well, for all those that think that, listen up, because I'm about to tell you why that is horse shit. The number of police officers per person since 1901 are as follows. In 1901 there were 32 million people, there were 42,000 police officers. 1911, 36 million people, 51,000 police officers. And we can go through this list up until 2010 when there was 63 million people and 143,000 police officers. 2016, 65 million, and that went down to 124,000 police officers after the cuts. But it's plain to see that the number of police per person has risen considerably during the time that the excuse has been given that more manpower is needed to do what they used to do. The population has doubled and the number of police officers has risen 3 or 4 times. And these numbers don't include the tens of thousands of office and administration staff employed to deal with the tedious paperwork that was supposedly tying police officers down. And the police over this time period has been relieved of many of its duties that are now in the hands of private security firms and local councils to enforce parking rules and check in shops and factories at night time.
Why do you think you've got the right because you've got an L plate on here, you can park where you fucking like?
I have a right, I was just picking someone up.
I'm not finished fucking talking.
The numbers of police have not only increased, they've been lavished with cash. Had many more tools and shiny toys, computers, high-tech equipment, better uniforms, helicopters, expensive vehicles and CCTV.
Now, in addition to extra manpower, we have introduced new, high-speed, 3-litre squad cars that make the American type of noise. You know, the woo, 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 as opposed to the old na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
The reason our police force is crumbling right now isn't because of bad resources. It's because they're coming away from their core reasoning for being there. They're supposed to be there to protect and serve. They're there to arrest criminals, put them before a judge or a jury, and that's the end of the story. They're there purely for crime. Nothing to do with social media, nothing to do with the politicians. They should be non-political. However, I strongly believe that the power at the top of the police force today are exactly that. They may have a police badge or police uniform, but I strongly believe they are political. And that's why the police force have gone down this way, which is a very scary way of policing. Because you start to become a tyranny rather than a police force for the people of the nation that pay your wages. So if you want to know the best way to turn our police service back into a police force, get rid of the top echelons of the police force, put proper police in there, and hey ho, crime will go down.